Whenever I look for the next game to review, I sometimes run into some $5 games that are really fun, but just don't have a lot to them, so I can't do a whole video on them. My post-Void review is an example of this. Fun game, but the video was super short because there wasn't a whole lot to talk about other than gameplay and presentation. So I decided to do a small compilation of games that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. It's been a while, so let's just get into it. These are 3 games for $5 or less. Cruel Band's Career is a monochrome roguelite where you have to balance fans that love you and hate you. You take control of 3 band members who are quite childish and don't know how to take criticism. They also fall asleep on stage, get high on stage, kind of hate each other. You know, these people probably shouldn't be in a band. I mean, cats can't play bass, and that was a fucking baby! The core gameplay is pretty simple. You rotate the band members to get hit by whoever's coming down the lane. You can also use special abilities that charge every time a band member gets hit. Each ability clears the lane in its own way. Sometimes it just kills everything in the lane, and sometimes it makes them food so you can heal your band members. Some abilities can grant the band member status, which can be used to your advantage. Statuses are another factor that can help and hurt the player. For example, Sleep can help you ignore fans, while Fear does damage slowly until they get hit by another fan, whether it's good or bad. There are plenty more statuses, and the game introduces them slowly throughout each level. The game is pretty much a chaotic balancing act, making sure band members don't get too jealous, but also don't take too much damage from negative fans. Along with dealing with the previous mentioned statuses, the game can be pretty hectic. It can get pretty chaotic and difficult as you manically flip through band members trying to cure statuses along with watching their health bars. This becomes even more difficult with the boss fights. At the end of each level, you fight bosses that put your band members to the test. Each boss fight is a gauntlet of dealing with the hardest enemies along with trying to kill the boss by charging up your super meter. The overall gameplay is pretty simple, but once you get down to it, it gets pretty difficult and is very fun and hectic. I do have a couple of negative gripes with the game though. A lot of the items in the game don't feel like they have a very big impact and kind of just add a minor buff to your team. This game's difficulty is also very unforgiving and may lead to a few rage quits from unwinnable and unlucky situations. Lastly, some of the band members feel underwhelming compared to the others. It can be hard to make their ability and passive useful compared to others who can do their job 10 times better. Overall, I think for $3 you're getting a great game. And if you're looking for a quick, difficult game, I definitely recommend this one. House of God is a gritty Hotline Miami style roguelike, where you progress through a train killing unknown enemies and bosses. The game doesn't give a whole lot of context for the story, it just kind of throws you into the game, which I kind of like. No fucking around, just go shoot shit and kill bosses.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
What drew me in initially though was the game's art style, especially the Steam preview picture with our character sitting on the train. I like the gritty, dark atmosphere, but sadly the art style can hamper it as well. The game's visuals are very muddy and dark, and it can get kind of boring progressing through the same rooms over and over again. The game's art style begins to get a little bit better as it gets really trippy and weird as you progress through the train. And I think this is where the game excels visually. More visuals like this would have been great, adding a very mysterious atmosphere to the train. It kind of has that in the beginning, but then it's just a series of empty rooms over and over again. The visuals may not be the best, but the gameplay lifts the game up. Combat is really fun though, and the game eases you into it. At first, enemies will be less aggressive and rooms will have a lot more space to move around in. But as you progress, there begins to be a lot more enemies per room, and also the rooms are very tight and claustrophobic. Along with more aggressive enemies, there will also be new enemy types that you'll have to deal with. Each new enemy will make the room a lot harder and force you to play in a different way. To help you kill these enemies, you have a couple weapon types: a shotgun, a machine gun, and a pistol. You're going to be cycling through these weapons a lot. Weapons will wear down as you use them and become weaker, and this usually means that it has a low fire rate and low damage, so you're definitely going to want to switch them out. You can throw the weapons too, but it really doesn't do anything, and I think it's a missed opportunity. I think one of my favorite minor mechanics from Hotline Miami is that when a gun runs out of ammo, it isn't necessarily useless. You can throw the gun and then get a knockdown, thus giving you an easy kill. It would have been pretty cool to see a mechanic like that in this game as well. The player could throw the weapon, get a knockdown, and then have some time to pick up a weapon without getting shot at. As you progress through the game, there are 4 bosses in total. We have the Amoconda's brother, and just like him, I hate him with a passion.
So fuck you,
A moving mass, which reminds me of that big slime from Demon's Souls, the Jellyfish King, and a final angelic boss, which I'm not going to spoil. The bosses are quite interesting and each have some sort of mechanic that gets incorporated later on as a different enemy type. Since each new enemy's attack is based off the boss that you previously fought, you're kind of familiar with it since you already fought that enemy. But instead of a semi-controlled environment, you're having to deal with those other enemy types as well. I think this is an interesting way to introduce new enemies to the player without them getting caught off guard. To help you clear rooms and kill bosses, the game has plenty of different items that you can get. Some are really cool, like having a drone that can shoot from the opposite side of the room or having some sort of clone. And sometimes you'll get an item and you'll have no clue what it does, or it does barely anything for you. I would love to have some sort of Ammonomicon style gallery where you look at the items on the pause menu to figure out what they do. Sometimes you'll pick up an item and not have a chance to mouse over it to get a clue of what it actually does. Some items can hurt you on an activation, or sometimes even randomly, so having some sort of idea of what these items are would be really helpful. A positive though is that the game has tons of synergies, and whenever you get those synergies, it feels awesome. You feel like this overpowered monster. Another minor complaint that I have is whenever you get some sort of healing item, it adds it to your item gallery on the side. In a bubble, this really isn't a big deal, but once you get an item that gives you healing items, it begins to get cluttered like this. It just makes this giant mess on the left side of the screen. My overall feeling for this game is that it's very fun, but also very flawed. I really like the trippy visuals and dark atmosphere, but the muddy aesthetic can make some of the enemies hard to see, and each room is so empty it gives them no personality compared to the outside of the train. Making items more identifiable would be a big help. A more organized item pool that doesn't contain healing items, so it doesn't look like a giant mess on the left side of the screen. This entire game was made by a very small team, and I think this is a great first effort, even though it can be a little flawed. I do think a sequel for this game has a lot of potential though, and I think this is a great game to check out for $5. Dead End Road has been on my list of games to review for a while now. A retro road trip horror game is right up my alley. The aesthetic of the game is what really pulled me in. Bit crushed audio, featureless 2D models, and rough, eerie environments that build a very creepy atmosphere. The game's intro is quite mysterious as well. We begin by talking to this old lady in the chair who seems to be a witch. She then tells us about a ritual that will grant us anything that we desire. All we need is a book, a bell, and a candle. But first, to begin the ritual, we must solve a small puzzle that involves these weird demon balls. It's a pretty strong intro. The only downside is, you have to do this intro every time you start the game. Imagine booting up Binding of Isaac and every time you have to listen to that intro story. It really is just a minor negative though. It doesn't take away from the game in any way. It's just kind of annoying every time you want to boot it up. Once we solve the puzzle, we must then type in our wish. I tried to wish for crab rangoons, but I guess that wasn't on the table, so I just put money. But once we ask for our wish, the nightmare begins. What the fuck was that thing? What the fuck? Oh, thank God, a car. Help! Help!
Hey.
Holy shit, man. I'm so glad to see
Dave,
you.
right? Hey, welcome to Lyft.
Sure, just drive the fuck out of here. Did you just reverse in the middle of the road?
So you from here?
No, and I want to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. I grew up here.
I didn't ask. Trust me, I just want to get out of
I
here.
know all the secrets. Don't, like, turn off your GPS. I know where I'm going.
What the fuck are you talking about? Just drive. Whoa, hey man, can you be a little bit more careful? You're driving like a maniac. Can you keep out of the way? Once we get our hands on the wheel, the road is filled with dead bodies, heavy rain, terrifying visions, and horrible drivers. You'll have to avoid oncoming traffic and other obstacles like birds, people, and many other things that can damage your car and give you a lot of stress. Stress is another mechanic that you're going to have to worry about. The more you have, the more scary shit that happens to you. I also felt like whenever I had high stress, it was a lot harder to drive the car, but I can't confirm that. To reduce stress, you'll have to survive the road until you hit the next town. You can go to a pharmacy or the supermarket to help alleviate your stress. You can buy things like candy, cigarettes, and the cure-all, drugs!
Where are the drugs?
What drugs?
Each town has multiple shops, and the most important are probably the mechanic and the pawn shop. The mechanic can upgrade, repair, and refuel your car, and the pawn shop has items that you need to end the ritual. There's also miscellaneous shops that sell specific items, along with dark alleys that can lead to a bad or good scenario that can either help or hurt you. A lot of the fun and difficulty of the game is having to manage yourself along with your car, because either one could lead to a game over if you're not too careful. Hunting down items is also very fun and forces you to stay on the road longer so you can make money and get the items needed to end this nightmare. You can make money from scratch cards, events, and picking up hitchhikers. To be honest, this game can be a little unfair at times. Cars can swing around turns so fast you won't have time to avoid them, and stopping in time to avoid an obstacle can be quite difficult, especially if it's a fucking train! So the only footage I had of me getting killed by a train got corrupted, and I played for 2 more hours and didn't run to a train to record it, so here's a super realistic reenactment of what happened. The entire area has no signs, not even a single stop sign. I'm beginning to think that the more horrifying thing than a demon wanting to murder me is how high car insurance rates are around here. My final thoughts on Dead End Road, though, is it's a pretty simple game with a great aesthetic. I do think its unfair and unpredictable nature can sometimes hamper the game, though. Even then, for $3, I think it's a fun game to play on a dark, stormy night. Thanks for watching. I apologize for not uploading for a bit. My girlfriend and I moved into our own place and I got a new job, but I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. I'm working on another video now, along with a short update video that should be out next week. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.